read one or two.
Okay.
So here is James. Please remember, this is for it's content for a child who is in grade 6. Grade 6 is about age 11, 12, thereabout.
Yeah, sure.
James, you and your friends have been drinking and taking bang, marijuana, as a way to have fun. You have been trying to convince your friend Paul to do the same, but so far you have not succeeded. Today he is telling you that he will be meeting his girlfriend later in the day. You know that he has never had sex with her. Your task, and you can see it is in italics,
Of course.
your task is to convince Paul to take bang so as to have the courage to force his girlfriend to have sex in case she says no.
Indeed.
What on earth is that? What are you hearing in that little paragraph? You're hearing someone who's being taught how to negotiate for sex, but to take bang, that is drug abuse,
Indeed.
so that he can force his girlfriend, that is rape.
Indeed.
What business is this content doing in a grade 6 class? When parents send their children to school, is this what they want them to learn? We take our children because we want them to learn math and English and rhetoric and understand science. But if this is what the children are being taught, is this child able to concentrate on math?
Can't.
Is this child able to concentrate on any exam?
Nope.
So on the ground, what are parents experiencing? If you hear parents sitting together, they're saying children have become truant. Children no longer want to go to school. Children don't care for education anymore. Bright children are doing poorly in their academics. Children are getting themselves into alcohol abuse. They're getting themselves into drug abuse. Parents don't know what is happening. Parents are just saying, oh, this generation is just, weird. This generation, we cannot understand them. But if this is what the child has been taught in school, in the name of life skills, because these organizations that go into primary schools and secondary schools, they say they're teaching life skills and HIV prevention program. Is this HIV prevention or promoting program? I think if this child listens to this content, goes out there and we have a holiday where they have 8 weeks or 9 weeks, this child is going to be practicing this thing because the child has been taught how to negotiate.
Indeed.
Let me read you just one more on that. It says, Monica, you and your close friend Jennifer are going out with your friends James and Ken, who are a few years older than you. You and James have had sex a couple of times. What are you telling us?
Promotion.
Okay? You and James have had sex a couple of times and never used a condom. You think you might lose him if you ask him to use a condom. Your friend Jennifer is getting very close to having sex with her boyfriend Ken. In other words, you're telling us this thing is happening and everyone is doing it.
Everyone is doing it.
She wants to start using condoms. You tell her that sex feels much better without condoms, even though you have never tried them. You are afraid that if she insists on using a condom, she might lose Ken. In italics. Your task is to try to convince Jennifer to have sex without using a condom. What on earth is this content doing in our primary school? Are parents aware that this is the content children are receiving?
Indeed.
Now, many even school principals do not know the content.
Of course.
Because you see, these people go in and say, we're going to teach your children life skills. We're going to teach your children programs.
Indeed.
But the devil is in the details. The principal won't sit in class. But when these people go into class, they're coming with male and female genitalia. They're showing children how to have sex, and then they give them role plays and material. Go practice.
Go practice. Check if you can do it.
Let me give you one more. This is a material, and it's also online. I brought stuff that people would say, yes, the entire book. Now, this is called Adolescents Girls Initiative Kenya. It is being run by many organizations, including Dreams. Dreams is one of the famous organizations that is across this country. They come and they tell parents, we're going to give your children school fees if you accept us to take them through this program. This program is supposed to be for children, girls aged 10 to 14. It is sponsored by UK Aid, Plan International, Population Council, Health and Life Skills Curriculum Kenya. It is online. Let me show you one of the things that they have in their material. This is what they say. They're talking about risk-taking activities. Now, amongst what is no risk, they say what is no risk is dry kissing. Now, wait. You have started teaching a child who is age 10 that dry kissing is no risk. It's in the category of the activities that are no risk.
No risk.
You and I know that anytime there is a conversation of dry kissing, one thing leads to another. But you have told the child that is no risk. Okay? Then they have another category of low risk. What does low risk mean, Moses? Low risk means you can do it and get away with it. Listen to what some of the low risk activities are. Number 1, wet or deep kissing. Number 2, having vaginal sex with proper condom use. Is that information a 10-year-old needs?
Can't digest.
Then it says oral sex without a condom. Now you've even left the normal sex to now you're introducing an idea of oral sex.
Indeed.
The question I'm asking is, parents, teachers, leaders in this country,
Indeed.
is this the content we want our children being taught? This information is not even good for me. I am a 45-year-old woman.
Indeed.
I don't want to be told about oral sex. I don't want to be told this.
Indeed.
It is unsafe for me. It is defiling my mind.
Indeed.
So what on earth is this dreams material doing across this country?
Right.
Being taught to 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and it is sponsored by organizations. So the question you asked is a potent question. Are children being sexualized in Kenya? Yes, they are being sexualized. When children are sexualized, what do you expect? Mental health conditions will spike up. Depression, stress, drug abuse, pornography, addiction to pornography. Why? Because I'm a certified trauma therapist, I did mention. And we all know, anyone who has ability to know, has this access to this information, that the part of the brain that is responsible for making decisions is the frontal cortex.
Indeed.
It is not matured until age 24. You're giving this information to a 10-year-old, but his frontal cortex is going to mature at age 24. What have you done to that child? You have exposed them to certain realities they cannot process.
Indeed.
So parents are even crucifying their children. They are beating up their children. They're being aggressive with their children.
Indeed.
Not knowing children are not to blame.
Of course. And of
Somebody
course
has gone and sowed bad seed. So children are just acting up what they have been taught, and then they've been told it's your right.
It's your right. And of course, the fact that we're speaking about this, your voice, of course, is sound of alarm to the awareness that people are creating in the society.
Yeah.
Is it the same thing as we even now discuss about the intentional parent?
Yes.
There are things that they would like to see, but because they're busy, they could not see this. If the child is addicted or not,
Yes.
the parent are even not concerned about this.
Yeah.
So when the danger is now home, the danger is evident now, that is when they start saying, na ulianza lini hii?
So you see, maybe that is even stretching the point, because there is no parent who wants to bury their children, period.
Of course.
Last year we saw fires destroy lives, and we saw little coffins of boys and girls. It ached us, even those people who are not yet parents. When you saw those little coffins, something in your spirit knows that is out of order.
Indeed.
No parent should have to bury their children. But if you take this content to children, this is the guarantee. Children will be exposed, children will get HIV and other STDs, children will die. And when children die, who will bury them? Not serikali.
Of course.
No. It will be parents burying their children.
Indeed.
So Mzazi, the intentional parent, this grassroots movement that we began,
Indeed.
the aim is to create awareness that Mzazi, please stop and understand there's an enemy against our children. Every morning, like today, as you're passing across, crisscrossing the city, parents are busy. They're going to work. They're going to businesses. They're people who woke up at 4 a.m. to be in the market. Why? Wanatafutia watoto. They're getting subsistence for their children. They're looking for school fees for their children. They want to ensure that their children are kept safe. But now, sadly, while mzazi is busy fending for the children, and life is hard.
Of course.
Life is so hard for that parent. Parents don't need to be battered. Parents don't need to be, reminded that you are not doing a good job. That's not true.
Of course.
Every parent wants their children to succeed.
Indeed.
Otherwise, we wouldn't bring them to this life. But we have an assumption, a wrong assumption, parents, that the world is safe for our children. So we even give our children gadgets, not knowing that these gadgets have become the spaces where children are hooked into pornography.
Indeed.
Okay? Now we take our children to the safe spaces we call schools. Like now what is happening in our boarding schools. Our boarding schools have become recruitment spaces for LGBTQ.
Indeed.
How do I know this? I will bring to our attention what happened in 2023. On 28th of February, we had a reality that happened in the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court of Kenya ruled that now people who practice the homosexual lifestyle can establish and register their organization. What did that mean? That meant that this organization is free to advance its objectives. What are some of the objectives? They want to fundraise, they want to recruit, they want to increase in numbers. Now, who is their target? Their target is not adults like me, 40 years and above. Their target is the children. Now, you may remember, and I will bring to our attention, some of the headlines that we saw. Now, few days after that, in fact, 4 days after that ruling, the then First Lady, Jill Biden, landed in the country. This is what our headlines read. Our headlines read, US donates 16 billion aid for drought-stricken areas in Kenya after First Lady Jill Biden's visit. She landed in the country on the 28th of February, carrying a briefcase, 16 billion shillings. The headlines say it is for drought. Barely 2 weeks later, on the 14th of March 2023, and I invite fellow Kenyans, go online, you will find this information. This is what Meg Whitman, who was the then US ambassador, had to say, and it was captured for us in the news. She says, over the past week, my team and I met with LGBTQ plus community and stakeholders to support the human rights of LGBTQ plus persons. The US proudly advances efforts to protect LGBTQ plus persons from discrimination and violence and will continue to stand up for human rights and equality. Now, Moses, it doesn't take, this is not rocket science.
Indeed.
Jill Biden has brought 16 billion. 2 weeks later, the administrator of that amount is saying her priority is LGBTQ plus community.
Indeed.
Of course, she resigned, but we know that she has come back. She's actually in the country right now. She's come up with a new tag for herself. But now listen to the saddest reality. A month later, on the 14th of April 2023, we got some other shocking news online. A girls' school in Kajiado is closed because of lesbianism. Where on earth have you ever heard that happen? In Kenya, when at least I was in school, we would go on strike or schools would be closed because of hunger, or we don't like the principals, or we don't want to do exam. But we are hearing on the news, a girls' school in Kajiado is closed because of lesbianism. I called a friend who is a member of staff there, and I asked her, what is this I'm seeing online? And she told me, Pastor Antonina, what we have experienced in this school, I have never seen, and I've been a teacher for 15 years. The senior girls are raping the younger girls. Indeed. Now, it's no longer just Noon Kopir girls. It is happening in Makuyu. It is happening in Nairobi. It is happening across the country. Girls are being abused by senior girls. Why? Because there is money floating that is telling children, this is right, you can do this and get away with it. Indeed. And in fact, they're being funded for this lifestyle. Indeed. When children get into that lifestyle, what can we expect? I will call our attention to God Most High and what He did in Sodom and Gomorrah. Because in the nature of things, a male should go after a female and vice versa. Not two males, not two females. What did He do at the reality that happened in Sodom and Gomorrah? God sends His wrath.
And before He sends the wrath, of course, down to the country, since you're asking about these children being sexualized right in the country, you've really spoken a lot and quite a lot, of course, in the understanding of this awareness. And of course, as to the listeners that are watching us now, do you think they should be concerned about the dangers that are awakening?
Well, what are the dangers? These are the dangers. If you come and sexualize my child, you are not a friend, you're an enemy. Anyone who teaches children this content is not a friend. Because if you teach children this, in the next 5-10 years, we will not have a generation. They will either have died or walking around HIV positive and struggling with STDs. Is that what we want? No. Children are our posterity. So what we are saying here is, yes, there are children who are having sex, but it's because they have been taught. And what we are saying is that needs to stop. Now, this is the other sad thing. The same year, August of 2023, comprehensive sexuality education as a curriculum was passed in our parliament. A motion was presented by the Kirinyaga women rep, and I want to call upon the people, the parents who are in Kirinyaga. Is this the kind of leader that you're giving to the nation? A leader who says comprehensive sexuality education should be passed. Now, what does comprehensive sexuality education teach? Comprehensive sexuality education is a strange curriculum. It teaches that children as young as age 4 should be taught on how to masturbate. Children as young as age 6 and 7 should be taught on how to have same-sex pleasure. What does that say? Girl to girl, boy to boy. Comprehensive sexuality education teaches children as young as 14 years and 15 years. If they feel they are in the wrong body, they should go and get hormonal therapy, get surgeries, and change their sex. That is what comprehensive sexuality education is about. Now, let me take you back. In the year 2005, when comprehensive sexuality education was brought by its proponents to Kenya, their first landing space was at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. And documents are there that confirm KICD, which is the body that is mandated to okay curriculums that are taught to our children. This was their judgment. CSE is an abuse to children. Okay? Now, we have institutions in Kenya. This is one of them. It is saying CSE is an abuse to children. When they realized they could not get through to KICD, that is when now they went and funded NGOs and funded community-based organizations and began to go into the grassroots to sexualize children. They've been to Homa Bay, they've been to Kilifi, they've been to Nairobi, they've been in all these spaces. So they go and sexualize children. Then after a while, they come and make noise and say, teenagers are getting pregnant. Well, if this is what you're teaching children, what do you expect? Teen pregnancy will happen where CSE has been taught. Now, let me tell you how dangerous this thing is. Last year, we saw an article done by the richest man on earth. His name is Elon Musk. He comes up and he says how he lost his son.
All right.
His son, yes.
Before you progress to
Okay.
the Elon Musk
Yes.
and the awareness, of course, as far as this sexualization is concerned,
Yes.
I think I wouldn't say much towards the entire conversation,
Yeah.
but to allow you, of course, to progress the
Yes.
voice in the best way possible.
Yes.
Will I say much than that? Of course, let's take a short break. Then I have my cup of tea. Then after that, I'll continue listening to the conversation. Of course, are they sexualized? And if they are, what will be the best strategy to handle this? Don't go too far. This is the Morning Drift.
If you want to have a proper outlook of the economy, then you have to speak to the walls and gears of the integral businesses in the country.
And I want to be able to make the youths and everybody coming up in Kenya know that this is here locally.
Men and women in the thick of the bust of markets rising and falling, fighting to make their business decisions stick.
I've always lived in my career that I can never be late.
You need to train by yourself. You need to practice by yourself. Then from there you can compose yourself and give kind of services like this.
On season 2 of the Captain's Arena, we seek the inside of the minds, predict the shift in the markets, get inspiration to start and make sense of it all.
Just watch what everybody else is doing and just make sure you're giving back to the society.
Oof. This is the Captain's Arena.
Taarifa zinapochipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Look Up, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
Na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika. Na watasema hili, waseme lile, watasema hiki, na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hao sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Look Up TV. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Welcome back. It's a traumatizing conversation, of course, to really understand clearly the safe space for these particular children. Earlier on, we were having the conversation on the intentional parent. And if this parent doesn't know what is really happening towards their children, what is the best way to handle this? If the danger is in schools, what really must be done across the schools right here in the country? And if they are sexualized within the society, who now is to blame? What are the best strategies that we can make in place to really help these children and safeguard their interest? This is Pastor Antonina Cheng, of course, who is helping us to understand clearly the danger that is happening in the society. Earlier on, you were mentioning something about the richest man.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And this is just to show that no one is safe. Because you would imagine the richest man should be able to have enough guardrails for his family. But Elon Musk wrote an article that any parent reading will be sad and completely distraught, because some people who advance the transgender, this ideology, went into his son's school, taught his son that he's in the wrong body, got him started on hormonal therapy, and he's gone the whole 9 years, so that right now he presents himself as a girl. So Elon Musk writes an article and he says, I lost my son. I lost my son. And it's not losing my son to death, to an accident or to disease. No, I am losing my son because somebody has gone and deceived my son. Now, anyone who knows anything about hormonal therapy and that entire procedure knows that by the time you're taking those first medications, you have completely destroyed your fertility. So this child, one, will never live a normal life. Secondly, they will never be able to replicate. So the expectation of parents that one day you will see grandchildren from your son or from your daughter, that is a lost cause. And we have now organizations in Kenya that are going to children who are distraught. And we know that adolescent is a crazy period. It's a lot of, there are many emotional upheavals. But you're going to a child who is already confused and you're affirming them. They call it gender affirming care. But gender affirming care is literally destroying children. We now have an organization, Mukuru kwa Jenga, called Jinsi Yangu, that is now teaching children that, you know what, if you feel you are in the wrong body, then there is something you can do about it right here in the country. But the saddest thing again for me, Moses, is that parents do not know. So you will see these organizations, they are in our communities. They come in the guise of, they're helping community, but they are literally destroying our children. This content we shared in a high school just last year, November last year, just before the schools came to a close, in a mixed school in one of the slums here in Nairobi. And the children came up and they said, we've been taught these things from Form 1. A girl had joined Dreams when she was in Form 1 and she was forced by her parent. Why? Because somebody had gone to the parent and convinced the parent, you want to get school fees? This is how you get school fees. Go to this organization. The parent goes to this organization, is actually upset if the child doesn't show up for classes. But what are the children being taught? How to have sex. When the children spoke, because what we did, the outcry was so much, we called the parents. And we had them hear what their children have told us. One of the men was so upset. He said, these people claim to give our children school fees, but what they are doing, they are literally giving us coffins to bury our children. He said it in Kiswahili. Hawa watu wanatupatia school fees, lakini wanatupatia jeneza tuzike watoto wetu. That is the outcry out there. For parents who have come to discover that it is not business as usual. There are organizations out there who are sexualizing our children. But that is not all. There is one more that I would want to discuss. Because later in the year 2023 was an incredibly evil year. A lot of evil things were passed. And one of the things that happened is that there were commissioned across this country community health promoters. Now, anyone who knows about community health promoters, even in the past when they were called community health volunteers, we knew that these are people who are supporting us. They're supporting the health and the well-being of communities. One of them walked up to me, Moses, and told me, I listened to what you talk about, and I want to tell you one of the assignments that we've been given. They have all been given smartphones. And in those smartphones, one of the things that they're supposed to do, if they enter a house, and they find a girl aged 9 and above, they're supposed to ask the child, are you on any contraceptive? Now, contraceptive to a 9-year-old? Which 9-year-old already knows about contraceptives? Now, this is the strategy. They're supposed, of course, the child will say no. They're supposed to refer the child to the clinic, the health clinic that is near. The nurse there is going to put this child on a contraceptive. Now, I paused there because I was literally livid by this information, and I was like, if you do that, will you tell me as the mother? Because I have a 16-year-old. If you come and find her in my house and you have this whole conversation, will you tell me? And she said, no, this is my client. I almost screamed, because what do you mean this is your client? This is Kenya, where the age of consent is 18. So how can you go to my child, get them into contraceptives without my knowledge? And he said, Pastor, ni job. It is work. We have targets. And I've only come to alert you so that you create this awareness. So I am here to tell parents our children are not safe. And we need to ask ourselves, who are these leaders who are out there sexualizing, endangering the lives of our children? What must we do about it? Because not only shall we give an account to Heavenly Father, we also must ensure that our children are protected here on earth.
Indeed. Earlier on, we had a report, of course, that if the perpetrators come along to your children, or if the child wanted this so badly, alikotuna manja zake, thereafter we'll have the discussion on this is still a child that doesn't know anything. And of course, in understanding about this particular engagement, you talked about don't have knowledge, they don't have knowledge to understand this. And also it seems that the parents and the adults do not understand, of course, the entire basis, what's the danger in it. But allow us now to do this. What is the best strategy that we can do to realign these children, to teach them what is best to their interest, to make them become safe? And even...
Well, that's a very valid question. But before I address that, that statement of manja zake, watoto hawana manja, watoto hawana manja za sex, okay? Unless they have been exposed to this content. So what we are saying is, if you're in a house, there are gaping holes, there is a snake in the house, but there is a hole where these snakes are coming in. What is the solution? Is it to take a club and wait for every time the snake comes in to hit it? No. Mswahili alisema ziba ufa. Usipoziba ufa utajenga ukuta. All right? So you must seal the gaps through which the snakes are entering. Of course, if there's a snake in your house, you need to deal with it. But the snake is not waiting for you. Yes.
Seal the gap at home, but the society
yes.
has these holes everywhere.
Yes.
How will you do that?
Now, we begin by each protecting our space. And first of all, if there is a space through which the snakes are coming in, we seal it. And that's what we are saying today. This content is already in school. It needs to be halted.
Indeed.
This government needs to come to a halt and say, if our children are not safe, we have no business doing anything else. We must protect our children. First of all, as a matter of priority. This comprehensive sexuality education that has been passed as a motion in Parliament, it needs to be recalled. These parliamentarians who are pushing for these things, if your MP supported CSE to be passed, they need to be recalled. Any system that destroys our children must be called off. The Supreme Court of Kenya ruled as they did. One of the solutions that we must engage in as all of Kenya is that we need to engage in a referendum. Why? Because only a referendum can undo the wrong that the Supreme Court of Kenya did by passing making the ruling that they did back in 28th of February 2023. So what we are saying is we must clean the mud upstream. We don't just sit here and wait, but there is something that we can do. One of the things that we can do as a matter of urgency, and anyone who is listening to my voice, number one, we must pray. Do you remember when Jesus was on his way to Golgotha? The Bible tells us that women were weeping for him and feeling woe for him. What did he say? Don't weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. Because what is happening right now is not new. In Numbers chapter 25, the famous sorcerer Balaam comes up with a strategy because he cannot curse God's people. He tells King Balak, who is very afraid of the Israelites, these guys, you cannot curse them, but there is something you can do. Get them to sin against their holy God. Then step back and see how their God is going to do with them. So do you remember what happened? God was so upset about their sexual immorality, he sent a pandemic and 24,000 people died. That is what happens when people anger God. One of the first things that we must do, each one of us, we must weep. We must cry for our children. Job used to wake up as an intentional parent, and every day he would give sacrifices to repent for the sake of the children. That is one thing that each one of us can do. It is within our purview to do, and we encourage, as Mzazi, the intentional parent, we encourage parents, Gather. Jesus said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there in their midst. But when you gather, what do? Pray and weep for the children. Number 2 is that we must rise up and coach our children differently. We must mentor our children. We must disciple our children. If this is the content my child has received in school, I cannot be quiet about it. So the soonest time possible, like today, if your children will come home today, you need to have a conversation. Establish what they have been taught in their life skills subject. Establish what they know with regard to this and begin to inculcate family values, biblical values.
But the families that do not have this, we spoke on like father, like son. If the father is a drunkard, of course, the son now becomes the same thing. How will we initiate that?
This is the truth, Moses. Hata mwizi hataki kuibiwa. Even a thief does not want to be stolen from. I have done outreach ministries, evangelistic ministries in the streets of Nairobi, where you find prostitutes, Koinange Street. And I have heard women say, I am doing this for my children. But do they want their children to know what they do? Absolutely not. So people everywhere have a conscience. We have a godly conscience within us. Like the person who brought me that information about what the CHPs are doing, I asked her, because she's a grandmother, would you want this content being taught to your grandchildren? And she said, no, I don't want this to happen to my children. But now the saddest thing is this. When we place money first, then these are the results. Because now Jesus also told us, the love of money is the root of all evil. For the sake of money, people have sold out the destinies of children. But I want to remind, even those who have been mandated by government, who've been given jobs, as it were, I want to remind you of a certain King Pharaoh. He was the leader of his country, and he came up with a decree that every male baby boy should be killed. The Bible tells us there were 2 women, midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, who said, no, that's what the king has said, but we fear God. We shall not do what the king has said. So I am calling out even to those ones who are in government and they know what we are talking about. People who have also been given those gadgets and your community health promoters. I am calling out to you that your conscience arises and that you choose to fear God more than man. But this is the time and this is the season where Jesus warned us that in the last days there will be a lot of evil. But even if there will be a lot of evil, I can teach my children. I can immunize my children and teach them differently. For example, when I was going to high school, we were told that you're going to go to school and this is what they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you of evolution. They're going to tell you you came from monkeys. They're going to tell you all these things. But you need to know that you were made by God. What were the parents doing? They were preparing us. There's a big bad world, but get your values correct. Get your proper knowledge intact. So if this is what children are being taught, we need to teach children family values. We need to teach them biblical values. And then we need to tell them, this is what the world will tell you. It will tell you that a girl can have sex with a girl, but this is what God says.
Which will sound normal.
Correct. And so parents have the divine mandate from God to be able to pass on this godly legacy to their children. And I want to assert this, that even education, when children are in school, education must be seen as an extension of parenting. You have no business teaching my children values that I'm not teaching my children. I am teaching my children not to steal, then you go teach them to steal. That is unacceptable. I am teaching my children to honor God and to walk in chastity, sexual purity. You have no business teaching my children that it is now their right to have sexual pleasure. But now the other saddest thing is, if we fail to do that, our children will end up in abortion, and there's so much abortion happening. And what is abortion? It is the killing of the preborn. 73 million babies, Moses, are killed every year through abortion. It's the world genocide, the greatest genocide. How do you place 73 million human beings and you go shooting them? That is what is happening every day when abortion is happening. And of course, right now, there are people who will claim, my body, my choice. But we want to say When that child is forming in my stomach, it has its own body. It is its own person. It's being there for 9 months just for it to grow and get its own startup in life. But that child is going to be born and it's going to have its full life. So if I say my body, my choice, my right stops where that child's right begins. And so we need to have these solid conversations and say, abortion must be fought against, must be pushed back against. Comprehensive sexuality education must be pushed back against. LGBTQ ideologies must be pushed back against. Pornography must not be aided. We must push back against this. And that is why we formed Mzazi, the intentional parent.
All right. That is very wise, of course, to introduce the Mzazi. And there's someone that has been in the society and has seen these children grow. And in one or the other, he's abused them or sexualized them. Yes. But now he's watching us right now. Yes. And wants to heal and wants to get a new start. Of course, I made a mistake. Yeah. I want to realign things. Yes. Of course, as pastors spoken, I think I want to change about this. Yes. Maybe he's a teacher, he's a parent, he's a maid, but wants to change. Yes. This thing has happened really. Yes. But I want a new start. Yes.
And there is hope. Part of this conversation is also advocating for what God teaches. You see, God teaches that I place before you life and death. Choose life that you may live. And the gospel of Jesus Christ is the only one that can turn around an errant person to a person who is now walking in the way of Christ. Now, the point is this. If you have been convicted of your wrong, the first place is repentance. You must turn to God because it is against God first that you have sinned.
30 years imprisonment.
Oh, no. First of all, repent. Get sorted with God. But then on a practical sense, if you have been caught doing these atrocities, action needs to be taken. Indeed. Why? Because there has to be seen to be justice. And the person, that child who has been raped, like for example, just 2 weeks ago, we had of a 22-year-old boy who has sodomized some 2-3 boys. Now, first of all, there's something wrong with that picture. Something has informed this boy to think like that, and so has gone ahead to abuse. We've heard of a bishop that has now been arrested because of, again, the same thing, of sodomy. We are a law-abiding society. We uphold the rule of law, and the rule of law must take its entire course. So if it is jail term, that is appropriate where somebody is deemed to have been guilty of an error. Now, but the thing is this, it must be seen as a whole. First, the children must be protected. And protecting children means putting behind bars people who injure, people who abuse children. So this whole conversation needs to be seen from a holistic perspective. The people who are doing these things, I don't even think need to go home. I think they need to go to jail because you have no business abusing children and destroying their life.
They've gone to jail, but the abused, those are the children now, stay at home. And in few years' time, they will heal and say, ile time. So,
but it's not automatic healing. Healing is not automatic. Parents who know their children have gone through abuse must provide the environment for them to be able to have their issues addressed. That's why I'm a trauma therapist. That's one of the things that I do. Being able to walk with people through their trauma. There are counselors who can walk with children and get them out of that, the trauma of what they have experienced. Right. If they don't, abused children end up abusing others.
Indeed. Then bring us now to the conversation on mental health of these particular children.
Yes.
They really want to embrace change, but the same thought, the idea of how these things happened, if it was by force or by will, they still want to feel like, hey, Manzi, I'm not comfortable.
Yeah. Now, the truth is the brain can be rewired. That's why Romans 12:2 talks about be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Your brain can be retaught new habits. And so you have gone through a reality of trauma. There is healing for those ones who have gone through those kinds of trauma. So whereas on the one side we're saying protect, prevent, but we're also saying that there is provision for healing for those ones who have gone through those kinds of traumas. And there has to be an intervention that is intentional. You don't assume it. You don't wish that, you know, somehow they're going to recover. No, there has to be an intentional intervention. That's why I was talking about counseling. That's why I was talking about trauma therapy. That's why I'm talking about spiritual conversations, because we also understand as spiritual people that when sex happens, it's not just a physical conversation. There is a spiritual connotation. There are demonic forces that come over children, and because of that you get a generation that is demonized because of the sexual experiences that they have gone through. So if we have an intervention that is multifaceted, we deal with the legal systems to protect children, we deal with the counseling to protect children, we deal even in the pulpits talking about and addressing these realities, then you will find that God has prepared a pathway of healing and restoration for everyone in our society.
Even as you now end the conversation, of course, who are mostly affected?
Yes.
And even as you answer that, now drive to us. What's the entire UZAO, and of course, how can we reach out if we want another engagement, if there's a call to action to many others that will have wanted to take this initiative, but they do not know. And in idea, you know, your space now.
Thank you very much, Moses. And part of this conversation is asserting that there is hope and there is help if we can become intentional. In other words, we're not leaving things to chance. It's not random. We have to be intentional to gather. We have to be intentional to pray. We have to be intentional to band together, to push back on evil. We have to be intentional to support this cause. UZAO was registered specifically to support that these pro-family conversations can happen. We have our website. It is www.uzaoafrica.org. That is UZAO, then Africa, all in one word, .org. That is our website. And people are welcome to visit that website, begin to interact. We are looking for 1 million people in Kenya. 1 million who will stand up and say, we are eager to protect our children. We will give of our finances, we will give of our networks, we will give of our skills, because I can't do this alone. We need every last one of us. And I've been across this country from Tana River, Kiambu, Kakamega, Kilifi. Just recently, this past weekend, I was in Bomet. And when parents get to hear this, they are rising up. Parents are rising up. Parents are telling one another. Parents are availing themselves for training, because some of these conversations, you need to be equipped, you need to be coached, you need to be mentored, you need to go through a training process so that you understand what are we dealing with and how can we intervene. And so my invitation is, please, let's band together. Join Mzazi, the intentional parent. We also have an outreach, a special outreach for the next generation, for the Gen Zs, for those ones who are yet to be parents. So this conversation is not just for parents, it's also for future parents. And we are saying, UZAO Gen Next. Join this, let's band together, and let us say we will protect the next generation. If you will allow me, I will share the phone number where people can get in touch with us. It is 0113 093 891. I'll repeat it using the +254 code. So +254 113 093 891. Call us during the working hours and you will get guidance on the next steps. But we are calling on people to also support this work. Whereas the other side has a lot of funding, this pro-family cause is done by people who are just doing it out of conviction. But we need to fuel this movement. We need to get the message out there. We need to get materials out there. And so we are inviting people to partner with us, to participate with us to make this happen. I can share my email. Is uzaoafrica@gmail.com. On the 9th and 10th of May, we shall have a Mzazi conference at the All Saints Cathedral just here in Nairobi. And so we are inviting men and women, parents and future parents, come and get to be educated, come and get to be empowered and know how to protect your children from the sexualization agenda. That is on the 9th and the 10th of May from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pastor. It's a pleasure. And shukuru sana bwana. That was amazing. I wouldn't say much to that. I wouldn't ask many other questions, but I feel we haven't exhausted everything. I will now give it a space because the awareness needs to be 100%. Yes. There are people that have watched this and of course are listening to this. And of course, if you're there, there is also a room for hope and a room for change. Ladies and gentlemen, the society has learned. And if the society hasn't learned, we still have a space to learn, or to unlearn what we've learned, of course. And of course, Pastor Antonina.
Antonina.
And I saw that coming, of course.
Yeah.
All right, see you tomorrow, of course, even as we embrace Artistic Thursday. The society has learned. I've learned as well.
Let's protect children.
Gen Z something.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow. My director has been King Dantimax. Of course, it's a pleasure.
We value your feedback and welcome your complaints about our programming and operations. Feel free to get in touch with us through 0700 893 542 or send us an email to info@lookuptv.co.ke.